In this video, I'm going to show you how to AFK Skeletal Wyverns so you can make yourself around about 16 to 18 million GP per hour right now, as well as preparing yourself for necromancy for some extra bones. As always with money making guides on YouTube, you can expect the prices to shift a little bit, and it is what it is. Even if the price does change, this is still a solid way to gather up some bones if you do need them ready for necromancy release. Speaking of necromancy, that is why this method is so good right now. Skeletal Wyvern bones are selling for around about 26,000 GP. Depending on how fast you want to sell them, if you want to insta sell them, you'll get less, obviously, but if you want to slow sell them, you absolutely can get yourself the higher amount shown right here. Again, this will likely change once this video is posted and people start doing this method. So here's some numbers for you before we get started so you know what to expect. Doing this, you can probably expect to get around 600 bones per hour, which is definitely possible to get slightly more as well, but this is about the average that I would give. This is around about 16 to 18 million GP per hour, depending on whether you insta-sell them or whether you slow sell them. You can expect to spend around about 2 million GP per hour in costs. This is going to come from penance powder, which you're going to want to have, and of course using your potions like overloads and the wormfire potions as well. I have managed to make this completely AFK, except for replacing your potion timers every 5 to 6 minutes, and you will not need to use vampirism aura or the penance aura as well, meaning you can do this indefinitely. You don't have to reset your auras or anything like that, but I would recommend having something like dark magic, which is the one I'm going to be using in this video. Finally, of course, you're going to want to have the auto bone picker from the bone crusher upgrade, and also the death note relic to make it completely AFK. If you don't have the death note relic, you'll have to note your bones manually, which is obviously not completely AFK. So for gear, you don't need to match me exactly. You don't have to have exactly what I have, but obviously the lower you go against this, the less kills you're going to get per hour, and eventually it may not be fully AFK. The expectations on requirements to keep it exactly as I'm going to have it in this video is I would probably have tier 90 dual wield weapons with Great Concentrator Blast. Again, you could replace this with a staff, probably an obliteration staff or something like that, if you wanted to. I do have Animate Dead, and I am using 2 pieces of Crypt Bloom, but I know you could definitely use this in Sea Singers or in the Ganodermica armor as well. Then I do have tier 95 curses, and I would recommend this as this is going to be a big part of your damage, and you are going to want to have Soul Split from level 92 at least anyway. Then you have overloads, which you are going to want to have for sure. You're also going to need to have wormfire potions. Now the requirements for these is lower than overloads, so you can make these anyway, and I'll put links for the potions that you need in the description. Otherwise, it's going to be things like a Ripper Demon Familiar, which you could then again change out for something else at the cost of kills per hour, and a few other things that you can switch up along the way too. This is by no means a low level method. You can't really expect to AFK for 16 to 18 million GP per hour with low level stuff. It just wouldn't really make sense, right? So anyway, let's talk about how to do it. So you have 2 options on doing this. You can either go to your player-owned Slayer dungeon, which is where the person who suggested this to me actually does this, or you can go to the regular old Skeletal Wyvern dungeon and do it here instead. They both work absolutely fine. The example I'm going to use is in this public dungeon, as I assume most people will have this unlocked instead of a Slayer dungeon. I will note though that a player on Slayer dungeon, especially in the small room, will give you more kills per hour, which means more GP, so keep that in mind. You could probably push this over 20 million GP an hour if you are in the small room of a player on Slayer dungeon. However, again, we are going to be using the public dungeon for this video. Moving on to my gear, as you can see in my inventory, I'm using a Wormfire Potion, an Overload, an Aggression Potion to keep them attacking me, a Super Prayer Renewal to make sure my prayer drain doesn't go down too much, a Weapon Poison +++, which is going to just help out every now and again. I have Magic Notepaper to note up all the bones if you don't have the Death Note Relic, which I would definitely suggest having. I also have Penance Powder, which I'll be using before I go in, and I have an hour's worth on my preset. Then I have my Ancient Elven Ritual Shard, which is super important for keeping your prayer up, and I have an Enhanced Excalibur just in case my health drops a little bit. This would only happen if you don't do something like Renew a Potion, or if you don't use Animate Dead, something like that. As for my worn equipment, you can see a few unique things here. As for my Crypt Bloom armor, you can definitely replace this with Ganodermic or Sea Singer armor. I do, however, have the Undead Slayer perk on here. This is going to help a lot, as Skeletal Wyverns do count as the undead, so this will help out tons. This is also why I'm using the Salve Amulet E. This is going to increase my damage on them a ton as well, increasing the kills per hour as well. As for my weapons, I'm using tier 92 dual wield, but you could definitely use this with Seismics. You could probably also use the tier 85 dual wields too, but I have to check this. Your kills will be slower likely. Whether you heal enough, I'm pretty sure you'll probably be okay still, but you'll just have to check it out. I'm using Dragon Rider Helmet gloves, and boots to reduce the drain rate of my prayers. This allows me to keep my tier 99 DPS curse and my soul split active the whole time, and all I need is the super prayer renewal and the ancient elven ritual shard to keep this prayer up. I'm also using my full book and my channeler's ring and my rune pouch as prayer bonus as well. These all have prayer bonuses on them, and these are important. If you lose any prayer bonus here, you are going to start draining prayer over time and not be able to sustain it completely. Finally, I was using the dark magic aura. You could just use any DPS aura here: Majorat, Maniacal, Accuracy aura, whatever you want. If you want to use Vampora, use Vampora. If you want to use Penance, use Penance. You don't need them though with the method that I'm using, so keep that in mind. The last thing you need to know is that I'm using the Exsanguinate spell, and I am also using this on-screen action bar right now. Feel free to copy this. That is the one that I've used. You can probably improve on it, but it works for me, and this is what I've been using for this video. If you don't have a Zuck cape, just don't put the Omni Power there and you'll be okay. Okay, so the very last part of the actual video, if you don't know how to get to the Skeletal Wyverns, you can follow my character on screen now and I'll show you how to get there. But otherwise, you can skip past this part and you can just go directly to the point of once you are actually at the place. Once you do arrive here, you're going to want to stand at the exact location that you can see my character stood on right now. This is because you will aggro all 4 of the Skeletal Wyverns here, and this is just the best location to stand. What's left to do is use your potions, turn on your full book, turn on whatever you're going to use for an aura, and go AFK. Make sure you have auto retaliate on first of all. Make sure you've used your penance powder as well, and that's pretty much it. All you're going to want to do at this point is keep an eye on your prayer to make sure it isn't draining all that much. Now, it might drain a little bit, keep this in mind, but that's what the ancient elven ritual shard is for. And also every 6 minutes you're going to be drinking a super prayer renewal. This will keep you topped up more than enough from my experiences. I didn't even really need the shard anymore, so you should be okay. If your prayer does drop slightly once you reach about halfway, just use your ancient elven ritual shard and you'll be okay. And drink your prayer renewal whenever it gets to the point of drinking another overload, and you'll be absolutely fine. This allows you, like I say, to get around 600 kills an hour, which is a hell of a lot. That's keeping in mind that you're doing the exact same setup as me, and if you change anything, then it may vary between that. As I mentioned, this is going to be better if you do it in a player on Slayer dungeon, and the smaller room apparently would be even better than that because Greater Chain would hit, but otherwise you're pretty much good to go. So hopefully this makes you a good amount of money, or hopefully gets you some bones stacked up ready for necromancy or whatever you're going to use this for. And I hope this video was useful. If it was, leave a like, sub to the channel if you are new, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.